It is Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. Today we discuss CosmosDB update, Microsoft investing in Databricks, refactoring SSIS to ADF, and a whole bunch more. I am Michael Askins, architect and technologist, and this is the Technology Architecture Solution Engineering Show in a little bit of a different format. In the virtual studio and live stream, we have a friend of the show, regular collaborator, Chris Sefurlis. How you doing, Chris?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good. So I almost said something right for the pregame as we're getting ready for the little button to click and tell us to go live. I was like, normally I can like totally mess up the entry, the opening, like in just let's just start over again, because the show, as what we're talking about today, is normally available on the podcast. Is typically we mess up. It's easy to just like, yeah, we'll just cut that out. We don't have that luxury today. So any pressure? You feeling any pressure with that?
Just gonna make sure we have the bleepers at the standby to make sure I don't drop any bad words.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm sure you'll be fine. I know I overthink sometimes when I'm live, and I like don't overthink. Just talk a little slower and everything will be all right. And if it's not, I refer to you all to go find our podcast, the one you and I did several episodes ago, where we talked about presenting and maybe doing things a little bit different. That's one of the things we talk about is reading your room. Sometimes it's better with video, slow down a little bit. So find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. We'll do a follow-up post and we'll include that link there. So a lot has happened since we've been in the studio. Anything new in your world? Anything happening? Anything you want to bring up initially?
Off the top of my head, no. Just it's kind of crazy. We're going through our Digital Transformation Academy this week, which I'm sure Aspirant is somewhat involved with as well, right?
Yep.
It's really our opportunity to work with our partners to collaborate and understand, what opportunities that we can provide to our customers, in a together format. I certainly wish I were in Vegas right now instead of sitting in my dungeon office on these back-to-back partner calls. I mean, I think I had had about 15 scheduled over a few days, and so, but it's a great opportunity to kind of sync not only with the internal teams, but also with partners, and figure out better ways to help our customers. Certainly what's pressing right now for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing I try to sprinkle in some of our conversations about different things. And it actually takes, to be a successful partner with Microsoft, it takes a lot of work on the partner side, but it also takes a lot of work on the Microsoft side. There's been a massive change, and you and I have been in this world for a while. There's been a massive change in how partners interface with Microsoft. And it's, historically it was, rough and a challenge just because it was, the traditional partner model, but they've evolved it to, if you can drive value and you can bring customers solutions they need, then you have a seat at the table with that customer and Microsoft will support you. Customers of all sizes. I've worked for some partners that were minuscule compared to some of the larger, you see every year partners of the year, which is these generally larger organizations. And it's refreshing to see that they give as much attention and love, if you will, to partners of all sizes, as long as you're doing the right thing for the customer. That's the important part. And, if we're going to be a little nerdy, I wish I had a graphic to put on here to talk about some of the nerdy stuff we talk about today, which is good. If you're more business focused, this is the one takeaway I want to give you, is that if you're not working with a Microsoft partner, find one. Aspirant, our sponsor of our show, is a great one. There's great partners in many areas. There are partners that are specific partners in one particular type of technology, and that's all they focus on. And then there's some general partners. There's a combination of partners that can help you get across the goal line. And just to kind of not take the show and our agenda off the rails, Microsoft has developed a system to where it's not just one partner anymore. It's like, okay, you're great at this thing and you're great at that thing. Let's all work together on behalf of the customer. And, I think that's some of the things that DTA can surface in all your back-to-back meetings. And again, thank you for taking time out of your busy week to have this.
Yeah, no, and the reality is, it gives us more perspective, right? Is, I'm a value based salesperson, architect, right? Where I want to make sure that my customers are understanding the best possible solution to whatever their initiatives are, or challenges are, and those kinds of things. And what this gives us is an opportunity to get perspective on what else is out there. Obviously, we have some great homegrown solutions. We've got some great reference architectures and everything along those lines. But the reality is, it's more than what we can throw out there, because the partners can be that much more creative, and they build that many more use cases that obviously Microsoft could never scale. Right. And I think that's a big differentiator for not only the partners, but also our clients, our customers, is that we do have such a rich ecosystem, whereas the other public clouds, good luck.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And the funny thing is for aspirant, well, historically for most consulting companies, I've done a lot of the MPN side, which is the Microsoft Partner Network side, because it is complex, it is vast, it is deep, and as a partner, you have to choose: am I going to be an MPN partner, which is like an integrator or an education partner, or am I going to be a cloud solution provider? Am I going to just be a developer who wants to have the ability to post on Marketplace and app source? So there's varying levels of partnership out there, and it's the combination of them is, I mean, I can't tell you how vast it is. I mean, you can get lost in the forest of the MPN, and not in a bad way, in a good way, just because the enablement and the programs that are there are amazing. And once you're even in, certain partners have certain competencies, and like we do a lot of stuff with Teams and Azure and infrastructure and modern workplace. So like we have the ability to be enrolled in special programs for that. We are on the cusp of having another data certification. So we'll be able to, deliver on some additional data capabilities here probably within the next month. So, having that understanding of what your partner can and cannot do for you is important, and making sure that you understand that it's not a hurt feeling if you need to get somebody that's, a specialist in a specific area. So again, that was a major side road as usual to our agenda. So
sure.
Our conversations flow. So in our opening, we talked about a CosmosDB update. So I'm just going to give a quick framing, and then I'm going to toss it to you, Chris. So recently, a lot of the news feeds have been lit up. Lots of news around some exploits related to CosmosDB, which is, a really good scalable database solution that a lot of organizations have started using and moving to. And then all of a sudden is you see this massive, oh no, there's this problem, and it needs to be fixed. And when you look deep into the problem, I didn't want to minimize the problem to make it less than, oh yeah, there was a challenge. I will say, and again, I'll look to you for details on what happened and what the remediation was, but it was like hours. Like, yeah, it's not an issue anymore. So do you have an update on what's happening with that, or any more color to that flavor? Just to kind of soothe the ease of the mind, since it's been top of mind.
Sure. Yeah. So, just like you said, a high level overview, right? CosmosDB is, oftentimes considered a flagship database product, in Azure. It's cloud only. There is an emulator version you can run to build your workloads on-prem, but the reality is it's a cloud-only database for production needs. It's multimodal, multi-master, and the real value of it is how quickly you can. I lost. You can replicate the data across the world, right? And so it's got a crazy SLA and 5 nines and great things tied to it. And what was discovered was that the way that customers can work in their Cosmos environment is using Jupyter notebooks. And there was a vulnerability in the way that the Jupyter notebooks were connecting into the environment. where essentially running a query about the target Cosmos DB that it's running on, the attacker could then return a set of credentials related to that target DB. Things like the compute that's being used, the storage account, and the primary key for that storage encryption. And so, essentially, they found the hole, they patched the hole, but they notified customers who were potentially, not necessarily definitely, but potentially exposed, and notified them as soon as possible. And, essentially the guidance was to rotate your keys. So I think most folks on the technical side know exactly what that means, but essentially you're taking that, that encryption key that holds the details about your environment, you're turning it around and creating a new encryption key, and you should be secure at that point, right? And so, from a patching standpoint, it has been mitigated, and we're moving on. So from that standpoint, a couple hours, and then along you go. And that was really it, and of course, we take these things very, very seriously. I think I mentioned in our last show that, Microsoft just quintupled our investment in security over the next 4 years, right? It's a $20 billion investment over the next 4 years. We used to spend only $1 billion on security every year. So now we're going to $5 billion a year, right? And so, certainly want to make sure that our customers are safe and secure. And this is something that was taken very, very seriously. We notified all of our customers, all of our customer service account managers, also notified all their customers to make sure that everybody was notified about this. I can't even count the number of times that we've run into situations where there's an old email account on the account. That was redundant, but on the customer notification account, if you will, and it just kind of went off into this black hole. And so we made sure that any customer that was even in jeopardy of possibly, having been exposed, we let them know immediately.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, it's a testament to how serious this is taken. Most cloud providers don't want to have an incident or an outage. It happens. It's how you respond to it is what predicates, that trust that they get from the public. Public trust is huge, and Microsoft has definitely upped their game in the past decade plus in making sure that public trust is definitely earned. Speaking of public trust and things in the public, and there's a company out there. It's called Databricks, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw a news article that had Amazon, Microsoft, Databricks, and so the first thing I did was mash that on my phone. And that morning, and the sleep's barely out of my eyes. I'm like, what is this? So I poured through it, and so Databricks has, as at one organization we co-worked at, Databricks was a big option there, big play there. There was a lot of activity around Databricks. So, my ears are very open to when I see that, or my eyes are very open to when I see that. And, it kind of took me off guard. So you want to give some insight into that news item. So, one news item is like, great, there was an issue, we resolved it quickly. The next news item is Databricks, Amazon, Microsoft. What does that all mean?
Yeah, and this one's super exciting. When IPO comes out, make sure to check this one out. Snowflake, I think, doubled its first day when it went IPO, and so this one, I think we could expect even bigger and better things. Databricks in and of itself is sort of a next generation compute engine. We have an exclusive partnership for Azure Databricks, which, it solves a lot of the complexity about connecting environments. Our cloud is first and foremost targeted at our enterprise customers to make sure that they're having the best possible public cloud experience. And so we want to give those end-to-end solutions. And so Azure Databricks has the capability of having things like Azure Active Directory automatically sort of tied into it. And it solves a lot of challenges around role-based access controls and just access in general, security and those kinds of things. And so, basically they have their own flavor of Spark, an enhanced and greatly improved version of Spark, which is an open source in-memory processing engine. And, so essentially they have a whole platform where, they really, really excel at things like data science and machine learning, data exploration and some of those things. And Microsoft has been coupled with them for a long, long time, but we're not alone, right? So, Amazon AWS is also an investor. Going back to as far back as I saw as 2018, 2019, we've made strategic investments with them, but the other public clouds have as well. They recently went on to GCP for another offering, right? And it's all about the partnership. It's all about making sure that we're giving our customers what they need in order to be successful. It's not for everybody. It's largely code-based development environment. And so, for folks that are comfortable with that SSIS, more visual-based, that we'll talk about here next, and sort of that GUI wrapper, if you will, around the environment, it may not be for those folks. But folks that are coming from the open source world, from the Clouderas, the Hadoops, anything that use Spark, and a lot of those types of things, Databricks is kind of a natural progression. We certainly have some other flavors. We've got a partnership with Cloudera. We've got a partnership with Hadoop for an HD Insight product. And so there are, it's all about the platform, right? We've had this conversation numerous times. It's all about the platform and being able to give our customers what they need to make them successful. Now, what I will say, what's different about Databricks is that it is a first-party service. And so when our customers go to work in the Databricks environment, it's in the Azure environment. And they also get those bills within the Azure environment. So all of that bill, all of the invoices that are related to the charges for Databricks, they all get rolled right up into the same bill. And that's one of the differentiators. It certainly makes things a lot easier for for the finance departments and things like that that are looking to process that.
Yeah. So, quick question on that, real quick. So I know like product Cisco, perfect example, right? So there's things in Azure that are Cisco, like you can get a V1000, you can get like a Cisco appliance, it's out there, and they have the bring your own license model. Do you ever see that happening with a product like Databricks, where you're able to say you have an investment in Databricks on a different platform and you already have some subscription or support agreement? Do you see the ability to make that portable? Because I don't know as if I know that answer. I've never been asked that answer either, or question either. So have you ever seen that? Or
so it's not really about licensing. It's about what using the service and what is the compute that's required to build those operations. So you're not paying for a specific license of Databricks. There are tiers that you can use. You have a standard tier and a premium tier. And a lot of that has to do with some additional security features and things like that. More bells and whistles under the hood of the premium tier. But when it comes to the portability question, that's more around how your service is set up. In essence, when you're running in these types of environments, you're running notebooks of some sort, and each of the notebooks has a series of cells that within those cells, you're running the code that you're doing whatever your data manipulation, data extraction, whatever it happens to be, whatever that operation is. And essentially, you're taking that code, that notebook, which you've written in any notebook, right? You've got Jupyter notebooks, which is a very, very popular one, where you can write all of your code in the notebooks, and then you could very easily bring it to any of those cloud services, right? And then also Synapse has open source Spark that is available to use those same notebooks. I mean, there might be a little bit of code change or something like that, just to adapt to the environment. I think of Azure Blob File Service, right? ABFS. When you connect to that, right? You're going to have a different link when you go into connect into those services. You might have to bring in a different library to connect to one of the accompanying services or something like that. But for the most part, that is very, very portable, which I think. I have customers that come to me and they say, I want to be cloud agnostic with my data processing engine or my data warehouse and things like that. And a lot of times something like a Databricks is very, very appealing to them for that reason is, when we talk about the Synapse MPP engine, formerly SQL Data Warehouse, that is, for your tabular data, row-based, and essentially it's designed for that type of data, but you're locked into that SQL code and it really only works on that engine, right? And so otherwise you have to translate it and all kinds of stuff. It's not going to work in some of the other competing products in that space. And so, again, a lot of times it comes down to the requirements. And I get a lot of customers ask, whether it's in, community events, speaking engagements, customers directly, what is the relationship with Microsoft and Databricks? It seems like they're somewhat competing products. And again, Azure is a platform. And so we want to give the customer the best possible options for them to do what they need to do. And so we need to think about the big picture when we talk about that. But on the other hand, Microsoft is a firm believer in the strengths of what Databricks has to offer. And so they're an investor, right? They're a partner with Databricks in more ways than just from a platform standpoint. So the latest article, and this is probably the one you saw last week, right? Where, Databricks closes Series H with additional participation from strategic partners, right? And I'll drop this link so you have it in the show notes. But essentially, Databricks just raised another $1.6 billion in funding, and they've got now a total valuation of $38 billion, which is just amazing. And Microsoft wants to be part of that ride.
Yeah, absolutely. When it works, it works. And I'm just going to touch on one bit that you said is, and we get that all the time. Part of the jobs we have as a partner is helping organizations figure out what product they need, because there are so many like products, right? And I say this over and over again. Anybody that works on my team probably is tired of hearing this. And if you watch this on the record, you're probably going to plug your ears. One size does not fit all. One size does not fit all in like organizations or within an organization. It's use case dependent and in how you intend to use the technology. And it's not budget driven. It ultimately everything's budget driven, but the technical choice, it needs to lead the conversation of this is the right thing to do. And here's why. We've talked in the past about, RPA and Power Apps and functions and all the various ways you can move data around and make things actionable on a day-to-day. This is just yet another case. And when we talk about the data platform, we say all the time is like, I hear people say, I have a data warehouse. I was like, well, what kind of data warehouse? Oh, it's SQL. So you have SQL data warehouse. And they're like, no, we have a SQL database. I was like, that's a SQL database. It's not, you're using it as you're categorizing it as a data warehouse, but it's not actually technically performing the data warehouse function that like old DW used to, or the Synapse MPP can. So, that becomes an educational opportunity. And then, certain factions of the business we're talking to, they're just going to glaze over, just tell me what you need. And then there's going to be those who are technically vested are going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. You have SQL DB, SQL MI, Synapse. The choices are deep. And then you layer in some of these partners like Databricks, it's all use case dependent. One of the things that, can span across the SQL world, and you mentioned it earlier, is SSIS. And so when we were talking a couple of days ago about what we would want to discuss, I typically pick things that I get surfaced a lot from customers. And within the past several weeks, there's been a lot of conversations around ADF, which is Azure Data Factory, and a lot of conversations around, we have this investment in SSIS already. And what does that mean? Because I mean, what do I do? I want it to be in Data Factory. Can I move it there on my own? And then the conversation comes down to, do we just refactor this and put it in ADF or not? So I thought one of the great people we could talk to is you on this, because I know for sure you've had this conversation probably a billion times.
Yeah.
For our listeners watching live and in post, off to you, Chris.
All right. Yeah, no, and it's funny. You described a lot of things that come up in the day job for me as well, right? You know, when you say you have a data warehouse, what exactly does that mean? Because my definition of a data warehouse is probably very different from your definition of a data warehouse. You know, and sometimes you just blow their mind when you ask them what your favorite data warehousing methodology is and things like that. So, SSIS obviously. A very highly regarded integration tool for data movement and transformation. We go back to 2005 with SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services, for the folks who are just tuning in, right? And it's still a product. It's still a viable product as part of our SQL Server packaging, right? We in fact, we in, I believe, the 2017 version, we gave some scale out options, so you could run your SSIS jobs across multiple SQL servers, right, to be able to handle a bunch of data at one time in parallel. And so it's certainly nothing we're getting away from. But for the folks who are saying, okay, well, I've been running SSIS, since 2005, or at least version 2005 and going forward, and we've got, hundreds of thousands of man hours that have gone into these packages, what am I just expected to abandon them and move away, and the answer is no, and so what was something that was brought out very, very early in this process, Data Factory V2, we got to be very clear about that distinguishing line, because V1 is truly just a data movement tool, right? It had a few connectors. You could run it on-prem. It would run on a loop and just go pick up some files and bring them over, maybe something from a database or something like that. Very rudimentary by comparison. Now, Gen 2, we went into public preview back in December of 2017, I remember. And, we were doing a lot of work with it back then. It was creating a bunch of excitement. And really the goal was to have a cloud native ETL tool, ELT tool, that gave our customers the option to build all of those orchestrations and transformations up in the cloud. And certainly, a lot of customers were running SSIS jobs. And so one of the first services that accompanied Azure Data Factory within the Azure portal was the notion of SSIS integration runtime, which allowed essentially you to take your SSIS package and bring it up into Azure and run it the way it lived. Soon after we brought out the SSIS runtime, we also brought in a lot of the partner-related software add-ons that went with SSIS. Again, going back to 2005, it was a hardened, mature product that people had a lot of confidence in. And so you had a whole partner ecosystem, just to name a few off the top of my head: Cozy Rock, Kingsway Soft, Pragmatic Works. There were a good number of these partners who had built on top of SSIS to give more capabilities, to connect to new sources, to be able to do different kinds of data translation and things like that. And so with the ADF integration runtime, SSIS integration runtime within ADF, we basically said, here, you can lift up those SSIS packages, drop them into our ADF environment. You're paying for the compute in the background to run those those SSIS jobs, but you can keep them the same. You can probably update some destinations and sources and things like that, right? But and then there were some edge use cases where it's maybe some custom code that wouldn't quite work or something like that, right? But for the most part, you were able to take that package as it lived today and move it up into Azure, and away you went. And that's great, and that still continues today. It really depends on what is the customer need, right? Do they want to stay and maintain those SSIS packages, to infinity? I don't know. That's up to them, right? The availability is there. Can you do it more efficiently with ADF? Possibly, right? Can you refactor them for a cloud native service that is designed for moving massive amounts of data in a very short amount of time, for translating massive amounts of data in a very short amount of time? Absolutely. The development environment, for expressions and things like that is greatly enhanced over what we had in SSIS. I
Superior.
Prefer,
Far superior.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's IntelliSense or just the category of catalog, I should say, of commands and things like that. It's an all around great tool. And so, I think with anything else, when we start talking about cloud versus prem, it's if we have that sort of cloud first mindset, it doesn't mean that we're taking everything we're doing on prem and moving it to the cloud and going to all cloud native services immediately, right? It's more about, okay, we want to get out of a data center, we have to move this to the cloud. Okay, we can help with that, right? We've got all kinds of tools around migration. You and I have done a lot of conversations about migrations and, all of those types of things, right? And then, having that mindset of saying, I want to be able to have the cloud native features on the next version of my product. And that's where the real value is. Now, you compare Azure Data Factory to any of the other cloud integration tools that are cloud native, and by far, it's the best product out there. You cannot compete with any of the public cloud services, any of the former services that are maybe running in like an IaaS type situation, where you have to spin up virtual machines to get it to do all that information, chugging along and translation and all that. Far superior experience. They've got over 95 connectors now in Azure Data Factory to different services, all of your favorites, right? So you've got, Salesforce and Dynamics and on-prem databases, on-prem file systems. You've got open standards like OData, ODBC, OLADB, all those types of things. And then plus you've got other grabbing data from other cloud services, from the S3 buckets and things like that. And so, for those customers that say to me, hey, Chris, we've got 1,000 SSIS packages for our ETL jobs. My first question is going to be like, well, what are you doing with your data warehouse? What is your eventual plan, right? Because you've got some legacy data there. If you move that legacy data off of your data center, off of, the NAS that's sitting in the closet, and you're going to put it into Azure Data Lake storage, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money by dropping it into Azure Data Lake and then pulling it in with Databricks or Synapse or, whatever your data warehouse of choice is, data warehousing tool of choices, right? And so you're going to save a lot of time and money by doing that. It's a relatively easy and straightforward process, but maybe there's something that's super complex. It's going to take a really long time to rebuild. Well, if you don't need to rebuild it, right? If it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? As they say, I would say bubble up the things that are of highest priority or can save you a lot of time and effort by making them cloud native. Do those first, right? Get those out of the way. And then, maybe the next gen data warehouse, or then you want to start taking advantage of some of the tools that we just talked about, right? Some of the Databrickses or Synapses or, even Snowflakes of the world, right? We're a platform. And so we want to give our customers the ability to use all of those with the cloud native tools that go along with it.
Yeah, you want to if you're going to move something to the cloud, there's advantages. First of all, like the typical low hanging fruit of like it's somewhere that it's going to be on, that all the back end speeds and feeds and all that's handled, right? But the question is about should I refactor pointedly around SSIS to ADF is like the question is what's the advantage of rewriting all that work to put it on a platform that can accept it near as is. So the question is does that level of effort have an advantage? So that's a business discussion, not a technology discussion, right? And some technology people are like, you know what, I want it all on the new stuff just because it's new, and it's running inside that environment. It's there. It's technically on the new stuff. You're just leveraging that mind spend that you did already to build that out. And then it gives you the time to slowly refactor without having that. We have these 50 jobs and we have to rewrite them all, and it all has to be ready for day one. Well, if we move it as is, you're ready day one, and tweak a little here and there. But then we can gradually say, over a certain period of time, allocate the resources to do that. And I strongly encourage that. People want to have the new stuff. Like when you get the new car, you want to, all the new, like I know I've had this, but like people are like, I've never had a heated seat before, like on off. It's summertime. It's 90 degrees. Do you really need to turn the heated seat on? Make the decision of making sure that, the thing you're doing makes sense. And then what is the advantage? Is there a strategic advantage, cost advantage? Like, why do you need to refactor this? Because, and I knew what your answer was going to be because you and I have worked before, and it doesn't have to be changed. The question is do it when appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, it comes back to the budget conversation, right?
Yep.
Nobody has endless budgets, especially for legacy stuff. Right. And so so I'm writing this book on cognitive services, and essentially I think my readers, when it comes out, are going to say, if he tells us one more time to not adopt technology for the sake of technology, I'm going to puke, right? Because it's great. We love this technology stuff, right? We love eating up. We love playing with the new projects. We love learning new things. I mean, that is the nature of being a technologist, and it's awesome, right? The problem is it doesn't always make sense dollars and cents wise unless you're willing to spend nights and weekends doing it, right? Yep. And because the day job is more concerned about what's bringing immediate business value to them.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the fine line when you sit in a CTO seat and you're like you want to do all the latest and greatest cool stuff. But as we have talked on previous shows, and I encourage the listeners, either live or in post here, follow up on some of our shows. We've had some really good conversations, like around ethical computing, around doing things from a migration perspective. Why migrate everything you have? Is there a reason to do that? Why are you moving it there? Because you have it? Because you want it? Make the business decision to move only what needs to be moved. That's business that you need for business that drives revenue or value or meaning. Move that, and you're going to lower your cloud costs because you're not going to move 10 petabyte. You're maybe moving 5 petabyte or 2 terabyte when you're all said and done. Who knows? We don't know what your data landscape looks like.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely good stuff. Anything else you want to bring up on that?
No, it's funny. I just had the honor of being distinguished as a data god. On LinkedIn recently. I'm bummed out because I can't remember his name. A great guy who nominated me as a data god. And he contacted me, reached out, and he said, "Hey, Chris, I'd like to do this for you. And put you out there." He said, but what do you call yourself the data god of? And I was just like, I can't think of anything better than business value, right? Yeah. Because ultimately it's all about what makes the most sense for your business, right? It's not about adopting technology for the sake of technology. It's about what can you bring forward to help your business, stay competitive, save costs, whatever it happens to be, because I do firmly and strongly believe in that.
Yeah, I agree too. We are like-minded in a lot of ways, and that's definitely one of them. So I think we're going to draw the stream and the recording to a close. As usual, like to thank Aspirant for sponsoring, making the show possible, and we've had over the years a lot of good success with reaching a lot of people with our messaging, and we are definitely tracking the right way. That's why we're we're doing the show, which is normally an audio show. We're trying to do it live too. We're trying to reach more people. So please visit Aspirant. If you're watching it, it is on the screen. If you're not, we'll have it in the show notes. And if you want to follow Chris, real quick before I pop up your Twitter, I've been doing that throughout the show. The system's been kicking that out. Do you have any recent YouTube drops that you've had?
Oh, geez. Did the Synapse short last month, which we kind of go through, the different types of tables and distributions you can have in Synapse. Actually, just working with a colleague. So I'm going to have about 4 or 5 shows where we're going to talk about Synapse architectures, using some of the related tools in the Azure Data Platform, Power BI and Azure Analysis Services and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that. We're hoping to record just in the next week here. So that's really exciting. We're going to do, like I said, about 4 or 5 shows that'll kind of fall in that Synapse shorts, because, we really want to kind of help customers understand different ways that, other customers are onboarding the products. But yeah, so that's youtube.com/bizDataViz.
Yep. And definitely encourage people to get out there. Even some of your early on episodes are drive value. So that's such a
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's I believe that, but drive value. I mean, they're good. Just go watch it. Everyone knows how to reach me normally. So if you don't, Prime D3. Long reason why that.
We got to find that out one of these shows. We got to get into where that came from.
I'll definitely let you know. It is definitely nerdy. So it is what it is. So again, thank you all as listeners and viewers now. We appreciate you. And again, thank Aspirant. Look in the show notes. We'll put a bunch of links. We'll be looking on social media, on LinkedIn. Questions, anything we talked about. You want to challenge anything we talked about, find us there. The show will be out there. We're definitely up for it. And aside from that, have a good day. Thank you again, Chris.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All righty. We'll talk to you all. Bye.